I tried 3 different ways of making silicone molds, trying things found at home to make them versus the stuff that you can buy to make these little molds. Then I tested out the molds using some resin, so let's see how this goes. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. This first method uses water, soap, and that silicone stuff that you can find at like hardware stores. So you just cock in a bunch of that silicone. I added food coloring so that I could differentiate between the 3 different methods I was trying. So I mixed that up in the silicone, added the water, then I just added in some soap. This is just dish soap, nothing too fancy. So then I just try to mix it on up and found the best way to mix it was with my hands. I should probably be wearing gloves. Ooh. Then I added a little bit more food coloring and stuck it to the table. I had a little foam core board to protect my table, but honestly the stuff came off real easy. So this is the object that I wanted to make in resin. So I just put it down and I smushed that silicone mold on top, and we're just gonna let it dry. I also wanted to try like a simple object versus something that had a little bit more detail. So I had these little toy soldiers and I just mushed them on in. And for the next way, it's cornstarch and more of that silicone. So you're just gonna cock it in. Whoa, nice cock. And I'm gonna use green food coloring for this one. So I just mix that on up. Made that really nice lime green. Then I added in the cornstarch and mixed it up. Once again, I just ended up using my fingers. Added more of that cornstarch until I got it to a consistency that wouldn't stick to my fingers. Kind of felt like Play-Doh. I was honestly surprised at how quick this dried. I was able to peel it off and just use those 3 little rainbow guys again. And this time I laid it on like left to right so there wouldn't be air bubbles, because I noticed on the last one there was air bubbles. And for the army men I made a little bit. Ooh, that was a squeak. It's fine. I'm just going through second puberty. It's okay. Just mushed the army men from the red ones to the green ones. And like I said, I laid this one on like very all at once, and it had a bunch of air bubbles, so I'm going to try to do that one again. As for the army men, it looked like they worked out pretty well. I probably let that green stuff sit for like half an hour, and it was already dry, which is super cool. So I peeled it on off. And there's a little spot that was messed up. If I would have glued the little rainbows to the table, that would have happened. The army men, they came out real nice. Real nice, Clark. Just peel her on out. Cool. While I was editing this whole video, I was kind of wishing I was more like ASMR. It was real. Had some good sounds. That's all I'm saying. So I'm gonna lay that down and redo that red one. This time I made a little like round thing and mushed it from the middle. Hopefully that won't have any air bubbles. I also tried one from the top that I just smushed in. See what happened. I also wanted to try just like wrapping one of the army men up and trying to get as much of the air bubbles out as possible. Just squeeze it in and out. Blup, 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 blup. See how that goes. And oh, we got more of the green stuff. It was also so much easier to mix it on the table rather than in the bucket, so I did that there. And I'm gonna do the same thing, make a little one, a deep one, and also wrap this little army man in it. And whew, it's all dry, so time to get it out. That looked like it worked so much better. And this guy, I just sliced him open on a seam, trying to make a seam like as clean as possible. It could be like jig-jag? Sure. It could be like zigzaggy, and that would help the mold like stick together when you add the resin to it. I wasn't too concerned. So lastly, it's this stuff that I just bought online. It's more of like a liquid thing, so I got a little tray and I added the clay to the bottom of the tray and made it all nice and smooth so I could stick half of the army men in. There was a little gap between the legs, and I don't want that, so I made sure that there was no gaps. And then for the little rainbow guys, I made a cute little square swimming pool for them. And we're just going to make this liquid silicone. So it's just one part A, one part B. I added food coloring, but it didn't really mix in too well. But you'll be able to tell the difference between this one and the other ones. I also can't do anything without watching something apparently. But by the time I tried to find something, I was done mixing. And cool. Now to add it to this little bath. So I just put a layer of that on top. And then also same thing here with the army men. and I ran out, so I had to make some more because the little heads were sticking out a little bit too much. Made more. Cool. Let it dry. The sucky thing about this one is it takes 12 hours for it to harden, so it's a little bit more time consuming, but it came out real nice. You can see how there was a little gap still between the legs, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. I'm just going to pull it up. Come on. Do that to all three of them. And this little rainbow guy was stuck because, again, it had a gap between the clay and the rainbow. But we have this one for the rainbows as well, which is the one I ended up using. I just peel it off, and it peeled off so nicely. Whoa, good job peeling, bud. Boink, boink. And with those all made, we can now make that resin. And like most resins, it's just like a 1-to-1 ratio. So I added that up and mixed it on up. Mix it on up. Ooh. And I wanted to add this resin dye, and it's supposed to be opaque, hoping that will help show the details. So last, I want to try out 3 different mold releases. So first one was Pam, something you can find at home. I wiped out the excess, then WD-40, wiping out all the extra juices, and then the real stuff that you can buy. Added in a generous amount of resin. If I were like actually trying to make these little things perfect, I would have been a little more careful. But I was mostly just wanting to test out the mold. So that one, I just added some rubber bands around it and put it in. Because this one was like, there's parts of it so deep, I wanted to make sure there's no air bubbles in there. So I squished them all out and just added in the resin for all those army mans. For this one, same thing. You don't want any air bubbles, so I'm trying to just add a little bit at a time. I wish I would have like made some like escape hole, like an air hole, so I could have got rid of bubbles easier. I tried to do that on this one by sticking this in there, and that didn't really work, but it's okay. Now you know. The more you know. Bubble pop. Got out as much bubbles as I could, and now just to let it dry. I wasn't super stoked on the resin dye, so I wanted to try out 3 different ways of dyeing it. One being like really cheap acrylic paint, so I just added it in and mixed it on up. And then the next one was being acrylic paint, but the more expensive one. I think that one was like $9 compared to 75 cents. And then just the resin dye again. I added like a generous amount of each of those like paints and dyes, so I think they're gonna be pretty opaque. So I tested them out on this piece of glass. Use a little sticky boy to mix them up to see how they would spiral and like see how translucent it would be on the places that were as concentrated. And after it dried, nice job, I resined it to the table. So just got them unstuck, and right off the bat, like, they're all pretty opaque. There was some inconsistencies there. The main difference being that like the acrylic paint was more like pigmented and kind of looked dusty, and the cheaper stuff didn't look as dusty. So with the resin all dry, time to see what worked. First, peeling off the one with the Pam, and it peeled off fairly easy. WD-40 peeled off just as easy, and then with the store-bought mold release, just honestly as easy. The only main difference I could see is that in the Pam one, it made the resin all cloudy. So probably don't use Pam. And that was the same case for all the other molds. It all kind of peeled out the same, with the resin from the Pam one all cloudy like. This open water mold was really sturdy. I mean, I was able to tear it, but I think that was just kind of because it was thin and kind of janky. Where this one I could not tear. It was super sturdy. So strong. Wow, you're so strong. And for the army men, it was kind of the same deal. They all just peeled out fairly similar, but the Pam one was a little cloudy again. And I was honestly real stoked with how well they all worked out. I wish I would have been more accurate when mixing my resin, because some of them came out a little sticky, the actual resin. And this was also a top coat resin, so it wasn't as hard, but I figured it would still be able to tell me like how good of detail it would have on the different methods. So I got those out. Again, kind of surprised. I don't know, surprised, sure, a little surprised that this worked. All the guys all sad and droopy. Let's bagger that guy back up there. So I'm gonna let those dry more and make a mold of this here skull.
Oh, that would be cool.
But before I do that, so welcome to my house. It's a really nice day, so I thought I'd edit out here. My pups, come here. So, huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is a one-stop shop for making and running a website. So let's say you've DIY'd something. Maybe you're making a bunch of cute silicone earrings now. But a couple things I really like about Squarespace is the point of sale. So whether you're selling things online or offline, you can have your inventory all synced up, so you don't have to worry about manually doing that. And with online store, they have templates and the tools to make things super simple and also look super professional. Your site's gonna be mobile optimized, meaning that it's gonna look good on whatever device that people are viewing it on. And with Squarespace, there's no hidden fees with anything, including the domain. Squarespace sells over 200 of the top level domains, so you can find the perfect name for your website. So one of the best things is you can actually click the link in the description, and you can start building your website right now for free and get it to look like how you want it, and run how you want it. And then when you decide to launch it or buy a domain, you can get 10% off your first purchase with that URL, squarespace.com/schmood, or by using the coupon code schmood. You're already making stuff. Go get it online, and a website makes it real. So I decided I liked the cornstarch method way the best, so I made some more of that silicone mold and just slimed it on over the skull. On my next video, I'm gonna make a hollow resin skull with pressed flowers in it, and this is gonna be the mold that I use. Turned out real nice, except for that part there on the skull, so I'm gonna have to fix that and get that back on the mold. Now that the resin is extra dry, let's compare quality. The one on the left is the one from the cornstarch, the one on the right with the soap, and it was a little smoother. And then compare that to the store-bought one on the right. The store-bought one was even smoother than the cornstarch one. And then when it comes to like the smaller detail, the one on the left is with the soap, one on the right was with the cornstarch. I feel like the cornstarch one had better detail. And then compared to the store-bought silicone mold stuff, I mean, they weren't too far off, honestly. So I mean, just depending on your project, I kind of think the cornstarch one might be the best bet. So cool. Alright, so be sure to like and subscribe. Go ahead and hit that bell notification. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for my patrons.